So get a good look at this beautiful maple while you can, because when this door's finished, we're gonna paint it all completely black. So one thing that slightly sets this door apart from our average doors, it has a big curved top on the jamb. Now, in order to do this, we're gonna take our solid maple, resaw it into thin strips using our bandsaw, and then we're gonna glue up using a jig this giant arch to go across the top of the door. So for something like this, we first cut the pieces to their thickness on the bandsaw, and then to get off those saw marks, we pump everything through our thickness sander. This step might be optional, some people could argue, but being that the bandsaw does leave kind of a rough finish on there, we find it's best just to clean everything up so we get good contact with our glue. Then we set up our blocks on one of our working tables, we coat all the surfaces in packing tape, and we got to get all hands on deck to make sure that this glue up happens in time. We're using Titebond 3, so we've only got about 10-15 minutes here of open time, and by the end of that 10 or 15 minutes, we have to have all of these strips in the clamps formed to that curve. Typically, you only need to leave Titebond 3 to dry for 1 day, but when we're doing our curved laminations like this, we leave it to dry for a week, because we found if you take it out right away, they kind of spring back a little bit, and then you kind of are screwing around trying to get back to that perfect radius. So now, while we wait for our arches to cure in the clamps, we can begin working on the door slab itself. Again, the door slab is going to be constructed from solid Canadian maple to match the frame, and we begin with 3-inch thick material for our doors to achieve a finished thickness of 2¼ inches. So once we've got those pieces milled into their rough components, it's over to our CNC machine to begin milling the joinery on these pieces. Now, the use of a CNC machine is something that we've seen to be a really hot topic of debate, and a lot of people seem to think it's cheating and that there's not really any human input that happens when you're using a CNC machine. If you guys can point us to the direction of one of these self-operating CNC machines, that would be nice. So what we're gluing up here are the components for the rails. So they've got that glue joint cutter that's left from our CNC machine, and that's what fastens these two pieces together. And we're also using Titebond 3 for these components as well. Then, while we're waiting for those components to cure, we can head over and begin working on the large panel that's going in this door. This is going to be a tongue and groove panel, and because of how big it is, it's not like we can just glue all these pieces together and hope that they're going to work out fine and not experience expansion and contraction. So we machine a tongue and groove profile on the edge of all these door panel pieces, and then we do something very untraditional. We fasten them all together with silicone. So no one taught us this. This is something that we've been doing for like 25 years that Lechik has kind of figured out on his own, and it allows these panels to somewhat glue together and create a waterproof seal. But as you know, silicone does not dry hard or brittle, so it allows for expansion and contraction without a failure of the glue joint. And in the 20 years we've been doing this, we've yet to have any issues with this method. Then once our panel's cured up, we can get our stiles and rails that we've put together and begin assembling the entire door itself. For this, we use a stile and rail door cutter that's cut on our CNC machine, and then we also use some solid maple hardwood dowels to further enhance the strength of that joint. Traditionally, door makers would always use a mortise and tenon style of joinery, which at the time was the superior method because adhesives had not yet advanced to the point where they could form a joint stronger than the wood itself. Fast forwarding to today, you have adhesives like Titebond 3. Those do form a joint stronger than the wood itself. So mostly your joinery you're cutting is for primarily alignment. Most of the strength you get from this is going to be from that adhesive. And again, we've been doing these doors for 30 years now, and we have a very good track record of them lasting. And the climate that we primarily build into is something that I don't think a lot of our online viewers realize, but here where we live in Calgary, it can go down to -40 Celsius in the winter and then +30 in the summertime. So these doors face both absolute extremes of the spectrum. Finally, after waiting 1 week for our curved components for the frame to cure, we can begin our work on them. So our jambs are primarily just screwed together, and then we have a spline that goes on the top to put on our brick mold and casing. Really what we're relying on here is just these big 4-inch long wood screws. And again, it's something that people, when they've seen it online, they question the longevity of something like this, but like I mentioned, we've been doing these for 30 years and our construction techniques seem to work very well. And then once the frame has been put together, we can begin clamping on that brick mold that I mentioned earlier. So for the straight components of the jamb, it's pretty easy to use your standard splines, but on these curved components, we have to do biscuits and then cut our brick mold into curved sections because we can't really reliably cut a big curved spline in the face of this jamb, so biscuits it is. And then finally, after the door frame has many hours put into it, we can get it upstairs and begin our finishing process. So as I mentioned at the start of this video, this client requested a solid black finish over this door. Technically it is a stain, it's not a paint, but because of the way that maple stains, it pretty much gave this door a consistent solid black look when we were done. So the first step of this process is the General Finishes black wood stain. Now, being that this is a water-based product, after it's applied to these components, we need to let it cure for over a week because our final top coat is an oil-based product. And then after we've applied all the stain to the door, we can come along and put our clear coat on. And after letting our finish cure, we can begin to pack up the truck and head off to our client's home for the install. Installing our doors is pretty much standard practice for us. We do offer a 5-year guarantee on our doors, but that's only if we're the ones installing it. A poor installation can really make or break the longevity of a door like this, so it's in our client's best interest to have us come out and do this installation on our own. And we've even done installations as far as other provinces. We've sent doors out of country before that we've helped to install, so just because you're not in Calgary, don't feel like you can't have a Black Forest door.
Okay, we're here today out in Elbow Valley, Alberta, and we're on one of the biggest door installs of the year so far here. We're going to be putting up a 7.5 foot wide by 10.5 foot tall black beauty.
Now, as you can see, this is active construction site here. So this home is a new build and they've got a temporary unit kind of in there just to frame off our opening. So we had to get that torn out and then we can begin by getting our door lifted into a safe space. We're not quite ready to get it hung yet. First we need to prep our opening. So once that door is off to the side, we can begin looking at the opening, and the first order of business is to waterproof it. So in order to do that, we like to use this blue skin, which lays all over the inside opening of the door. And what you're seeing Brad do here right now is just trimming back some of the flooring because it's gonna mess up the fit on our jamb. You know, as good as we try to do our site measures before we come and perform our install, you're usually dealing with surprises on almost every single install, and especially when it's on a construction site. Let's say trades don't always go according to plan and they'll kind of do what they need to do to get something done, and we then have to work with those challenges to perform our install. Once we've got the flooring all trimmed back, we can get the whole team to lift this unit into place, and this part is always a little scary for some reason because, well, maybe it doesn't fit, maybe we built something wrong, but as you can see, nothing was built wrong, everything fit perfectly, and we can begin worrying about getting this frame fastened into place. So in order to do that, we use wooden shims to get everything sitting plumb, true, and level. And then once the door frame is shimmed into position, we're going back to those 4-inch long wood screws. We go all the way through our jamb into the framing of the house, and then we plug those screws up with solid maple dowels afterwards. So once our jamb's secured into position, we can begin getting the door screwed onto the frame. Now, something you don't see here, but that we do include on our doors, is a little wooden shim behind every hinge. Now, some people might think we did that because we accidentally machined our hinge gain too deep, but the reason is actually so we can have adjustability in the future. So if this door ever sags, we pop a couple shims out, put the hinge back on, and everything fits perfect again. Once the door's been hung, it's time to insulate the opening. So we just use good old spray foam that we get from Home Depot. We apply a very liberal amount around the whole opening, and then once all that spray foam is cured up, we can begin cutting our casing. The casing is also made to match the entire rest of the door, and that's standard practice for us. We don't like to leave our clients to case their own doors, just because we feel that some of the standard casing that gets used in the other trims around the house doesn't really match the quality of the door that we're putting in. So we find everything looks a lot better when we provide the door and all the trim to go along with it. You can see that even applies for underneath the threshold of the door. We've made a custom maple strip that's going to cover up any of the exterior finishes. And then once everything is completed, the door is in place, the door is hung, we can plug up all of our holes that actually mounted this door into the frame of the house. So again, it's 4-inch wood screws that we put in there, and then we pre-stain and finish all of our maple plugs just so everything matches perfectly. And here's the matching casing that I mentioned earlier. So after cutting everything to size, we just use an air nailer to nail those into place. Nothing too fancy there. And as a final touch, we need to clean the door so when our client comes and sees it, it doesn't look all dusty and dirty. But please let us know what you guys think of this door in the comments below. As you can see, every single detail was black on this door. It's like black on black on black. But personally, even though I appreciate the beauty of the grain of the wood, I think this is one of the coolest doors we've ever done. It looks so sleek in this house and I love it, but that's just my opinion. We want to hear what you guys think and we'll see you next time.
Well, we got here at 8:30. It's 12 o'clock. 6 men, 3.5 hours. Another magnificent, if I don't say so myself, Black Forest door for a fantastic customer.